Matty Fresh on the track up estate. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate. Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Dylan in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and ballin' like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
All right, so I know you're going to think the crazy dude's talking to himself again. Here's what happened. Nate, Nelly, and I had a 25-minute episode recorded. In the span of that 25 minutes, Nelly lost his Wi-Fi and just completely disappeared. And Nate was doing off his phone, and his phone died. And then my internet also glitched out and skipped 5 minutes, so I could not post it. So what this is through Penn State's first 3 games, the good and the not so good. So I am going to repeat everything we talked about in 25 minutes by myself. So here we go. Let's start off with the good part. They are 3-0. I mean, jokes of games, let's be honest. Nevada, 46-11. FIU, which was not fun for most of it, 34-0. And Villanova, 52-6. That game also not fun for a lot of it, but we'll get to that. I will say this first team defense is awesome. They've only given up 3 points so far this season. Now we can talk about the opponents. Yes, I know, but they've looked good. The addition of Amari Campbell at middle linebacker has been awesome. He's athletic. And one of the great positives is for this team, they have linebackers that can move. Tony Rojas is healthy and he's flying around, and Amari Campbell can fly around. And that's going to help you if you get in track meets with Ohio State and Oregon coming up next week, teams that just have athletes all over their offenses. If you got a couple linebackers that can keep up with them, it's going to help a lot. We'll see. He's not as physical as Kobe King, just not as big, barely 6 feet tall. But, is that going to be an issue when you play some run-heavy teams, the throwback Big Ten teams like the Iowas? Maybe. We'll see. But for right now, what I will say is linebackers look good. They're a plus. The negative for them is you really have no depth. It's something Jim Knowles has talked about, something Dan Connor's been talking about. They're throwing the true freshmen out there, trying to get them reps. The top 3 of Rojas, Campbell, and Dom DeLuca, very, very good. It's just after that, man, you get where you worry, and you hope these guys stay healthy, but relying on 3 guys for what we hope is another 13 games, it's not fun to think about. The defense as a whole, week 1, the defensive end position outside Janai Dennis-Sutton was rough. Zariah Fisher did not play. The young guys of Harvey, Coleman, Malachi Williams, I'm trying to think who else played. There was a lot of them, but all those guys combined for 1 tackle in the first game. It wasn't pretty, but then the last 2 games, those young guys have grown up a lot and quickly. Chaz Coleman especially. And Zariah Fisher has to come back from. So defensive end group looking better. It's still not what it was last year, obviously, but in a better spot. And I think when you have someone like Chaz Coleman, kind of as I mentioned with the linebackers, they got athletes on this defense that when you got to keep up with the speed of Oregon, I think they can. Because back half, which we'll talk about a little bit, but the secondary has been fantastic. Obviously, they haven't really been tested all that much. The quarterbacks and receivers they've played are just not good. But they got some speed, and King Mack is out there again flying around and doing some stuff on special teams too. Special teams has been a positive. Ryan Barker's only missed field goal is on a block from 51-52 out right before the end of the half against FIU, which at the time, just the ultimate eye roll on top of an eye roll of a half. But he's been good. Gabe Nwosu took over as punter. He had a couple go almost 70, I think. He's a little slow getting it out, which he's a big guy, mechanically not the smoothest, but the leg is there. And obviously we know what he does in the kickoff game. They got some juice in the punt return and kick return game as well. They got Pena and Devontae Ross back there doing punts. You got all those running backs and King Mack that can do the kick returns. So, we're going to talk about the offense a little bit, some added yardage in the special teams department is going to go a long way for this team if the offense continues to kind of scuffle. So special teams, thought it looks good. On the offense, let's see. Drew Aller looked good week 1. His new receivers look very good. Hudson had a big game week 1. Pena had a big game week 1. Ross was kind of coming off injury, didn't play too much. He had a big touchdown grab, though, against FIU. Those 3 guys, I don't think any of the 3 of them are going to be the runaway number 1. It's going to be kind of by committee, which, maybe that's a good thing. You get to ride the hot hand at times. Obviously, the downside of that is who's Drew Aller specifically looking for on 3rd and 5. That Tyler Warren safety blanket is gone. You'd like him to have that go-to guy in those clutch situations. Maybe eventually we'll get to that point and we'll see what happens against Oregon. Maybe that'll happen eventually. As of right now, I don't think any of those guys have necessarily separated themselves so much more from the rest. Same with the tight ends. But it was at least good to see Aller get a rhythm going with those receivers. Looked like they had played together before for a little bit, which was nice. But 2 games after that, Aller's just not been good. I mean, we're through 3 games. He has 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. The QBR is 38, I think. He's not looked good. He just looks a step off. The offensive line struggled week 1 a little bit, but they're starting to gel. The last 2 weeks have been better for them, running back wise. Kaytron Allen looks awesome. Kaytron Allen's averaging 8 yards a carry. Nick Singleton, I don't know what's going on. He's running around 4 yards a carry. They had to get him to 20 carries to get to 80 yards, I think, this past week. The explosive play is not there with him right now. The vision is struggling. I don't know. It's tough to say what's going on with Singleton right now, but Kaytron Allen looks great. Let's kind of talk about that whole argument of why Aller and Singleton might not look good. And people like to talk about vanilla offense. The thing is, yes, Penn State is not going to show their entire playbook against Villanova and FIU. Everyone knows that. But it was execution that was a lot of the problems. There were some drop passes, Aller just missing guys, throwing off his back foot, Singleton missing open lanes, like elementary level stuff that to me didn't have a lot to do with what was being called. It was more the execution. Now you could say, look, are these guys really into these games? They know it's a joke, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, okay, that probably does play a role. I don't think they enjoy playing in these games the same way most of us don't enjoy really watching them. I think when you have Oregon in the whiteout at the end of the month, I think since the beginning of the month, they've been preparing for Oregon. And I think the team mentally has probably been there. So I get some of that, but some of the stuff with these guys has just not been superb. What I will say is if Penn State was being vanilla, I do trust Singleton to come out of it a little more than Aller, and here's why. They haven't really gotten Singleton out in space, and we know that his athleticism plays. Take the thought process out of it. If he's struggling with vision and what gap to hit and stuff like that, get him out of there and just let him run. So we haven't really seen him in the passing game. He has 5 catches through 3 games. I think he had 41 last year, so a little over 3 a game last year, and he's down to less than 2 a game this year. I know they're not really using him. He's going to be a bigger factor in the screen game, I think, against Oregon. I think they're also going to do some stuff to get him out wide on some sweeps or tosses. I think they're going to realize, look, he's struggling through the tackles, but his athleticism is probably the best on the team. Let's just get him out in space and use him. And I think that's what's going to happen going forward. So if they get a little more creative with play call, I think Singleton will benefit. As for Aller, I think it's a lot of mental stuff. It's a lot of little technique stuff, getting your footwork right, making the right decision, looking off a guy faster to get to your second read that might be open, throwing the ball, leading a guy, not behind him, which is done a couple times. Most notably, I think, against Nevada to Hudson in the end zone. Now, they ended up scoring there anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. But, just little things like that. I think with Aller, it's less to do with the play calls and more with just getting it together. So for him, there's a little more concern. Singleton, a little less, because I think it's easier to cover up a running back's deficiencies by just playing to his strengths, which is a lot easier to play to a running back's strengths than I think a quarterback, because a quarterback just has to touch the ball on every single play. And, you know, you can only do so much to change where they're aligned. So to say, like, he's always going to be behind the center, whereas Nick Singleton could be out wide. Nick Singleton could be here, there, anywhere. So a lot different. Nick Singleton can be in the Wildcat. So definitely a different situation, but definitely like what I see from Katron Allen, offensive line getting going. Let's talk tight ends. There was a lot of hype around Khalil Dinkins before the season started. He's been quiet. Look, he's a veteran presence. He's a fantastic blocker, but I think the offensive upside of Luke Reynolds and to a healthy Andrew Rappele is less. I just think the two of them are on a different level. Reynolds isn't the greatest blocker. He's a little bit more of that, Brock Bowers, Kyle Pitts type tight end right now, where you line him out, get a mismatch, let him use his athleticism and huge frame and go to work. It works right now. Andrew Rappele wearing 87 now looks a little bit like Pat Freiermuth. So I don't know. There's a lot to take in there. What I will say is Drew Aller, if he gets it together, he has options. He has 3 tight ends they like. You have those 3 receivers I talked about from the transfer portal, and then you got some young guys that haven't played too much. I see Denmark and Colby Howard haven't been in too much with Aller yet. I don't expect that to really be the case in the Oregon game unless something bad happens to one of the top 3. But between them, the 2 running backs he trusts, like, he has options. He has guys he could go to. It doesn't have to be one-dimensional. There was times last year where this offense benefited from going through Tyler Warren, times where it didn't look good going through Tyler Warren because it just was force-feeding way too much, and kind of saw in the Ohio State game what happens when they have a counter to that in someone like Caleb Downs. All of a sudden you don't score, and they didn't have an offensive touchdown in that game. So you kind of see the downsides to when you run your offense through one person. You also see games like the USC game where they might lose that game by 10, 14 points if they don't have Tyler Warren. So there's a give and a take there, but I think overall for this season, it's a little bit better that they could ride a different hot hand every game, whether that be a receiver, a tight end, or a running back. He's got options. So, that at least is something to take some comfort in, I feel like. Okay. Do not know why the intro video just started playing in the middle of that, but I think I cut it out enough. You might see a little part of that. But I guess the overall good thing is, though, Penn State is 3-0. Notre Dame's 0-2. Clemson's 1-2. There's a lot of teams that all of a sudden their playoff chances are pretty much gone, and September's not even over. And in the case of Clemson, they were a pretty trendy national championship pick. Texas has a loss to Ohio State, and they have not looked good offensively. Arch Manning and Drew Aller were 1-2 in a lot of Heisman odds before the season. Nowhere to be found now, the 2 of them. So interesting what's going on with there. You got some other teams, playing pretty good too. Like USC looks good. They haven't really played anyone, but Georgia Tech looks good. Oklahoma looks good. Michigan lost to Oklahoma, so they already have a loss. I know we weren't really expecting them to be much of a factor this season, but yeah, teams have losses. So I think it's Penn State's schedule. You weren't going to expect a loss, but I guess they're in better shape than a lot of other teams so far this season, which is good. And, obviously that could unfortunately change next week. Oregon looks really good. Now they haven't been tested, and I know it's crazy. I can't know if I can really say that considering what Penn State's played, whereas Oregon has played 2 Power 4 schools already. That is a decimated Oklahoma State team and Northwestern. This week they will play Oregon State. So they're playing, what was Power 5 competition, but it's not exactly the best of it. So it's hard to get a ton of, what is what out of that. I guess we'll see how they look again this weekend in a rivalry game, which they're 5 touchdown favorites in, which is crazy. But yeah, Penn State's, I think, 3-point favorite right now against Oregon. I think that opened at like 6.5 over the summer. So it's already down a pretty good chunk. So we're going to see what happens with that. But yeah, that is pretty much the gist of what we fit into 25 minutes. I was able to fit it in 16, 15 by myself, but this really is going to come down to Drew Aller and him getting back into it both mentally and physically to an extent, because he's got to work on his footwork and mechanics. But this does come down to him. And we'll see how the defense looks against better competition. I don't see them totally getting gashed. No, Ohio State fans are like, just wait. You're going to see it against Oregon. We'll see, I guess. Really like this Penn State secondary. They look really good, especially the corners. So, if there is going to be an issue, I think it might be if the young DNs struggle against Power 4 competition, which could happen. I think this offensive line is going to continue to gel. They had to get used to Anthony Donko being back and playing guard. And I know they were rotating a little bit, like Cooper Cousins was coming in. TJ Shanahan was coming in. So they were moving guys around at times. I don't know if they really got going as a group. So they're starting to get going, which is nice. They're trying to gel, which this bye week will help them. And then, we'll talk about the wideout next week. But maybe going into the game, most important wideout ever. 2018 is close. 2011's up there. Like, this is the first time it's mattered in a bit. Like, since 2019, I think Michigan had one loss and Penn State was undefeated. So that was a pretty decent game. I think that was to get to 8-0, 8-0, 8-0, 9-0, one of those. So like that was a big deal at the time. But I mean, it's kind of these other ones, like, yeah, the Auburn game was hyped, but we knew Auburn wasn't what they were. 2022, it was against Minnesota. Okay. 2023, the Iowa revenge was awesome. It was a game we also thought Penn State was going to win rather easily. And then last year against Washington, look, Washington was coming off the national championship game. They lost 21 to 22 starters and the entire coaching staff from that team. No one was exactly excited. And I think they had 2 or 3 losses at the time of that game anyway. That was a blowout. So it's fun. You get 2 undefeated teams, both ranked in the top 6, going at it. Obviously, we know in the 12-team playoff, it's not an elimination game, but it's a big game for seeding. It's a big game for the Big Ten championship game. And for Penn State, I think it's a game they need, because you still got to play Indiana at home. You still got to play Nebraska. They beat Michigan this week, might be undefeated when they come to Beaver Stadium in November. And then obviously still have to go to the Horseshoe, still have to go to Iowa. So there's still some games on this schedule that, can be tricky. So this is a big game for Penn State. And there's things from the last 3 weeks that I saw that I liked helping their chances. There's also things that I didn't like. Obviously Aller being number 1. But, if this comes down to special teams, I'm confident in Penn State. A lot of times Penn State's just kind of been a net zero in the special teams department. I think it's a positive this year. And I think, in a close game like this, where maybe they got more athletes than you could get 3 in a situation where they get 0, or you got 15 yards closer and it resulted in you getting in field goal range and they didn't, or you took a kick return back for a touchdown. Like, there's a lot you could play into this. So we're going to get into that next week, but that's our recap on Penn State's first 3 games of this season.